All right, I have not had caffeine for a month, apart from 2 cups of decaf and my first cup of coffee that I had in a month today. And I kind of just want to tell you how that's affected me, why I got off, things I learned about caffeine, and such and such. All right, I have a list of notes so that I don't miss anything. I wanted this to be all inclusive. All right, so why I got off caffeine in the first place was my caffeine usage has really been getting out of hand. It started back in college when I started using pre-workouts and coffee. And then when I became a gym owner, my days were basically 2 half days because I had to get up so early in the morning. I would use caffeine in the morning, usually coffee or an energy drink, and then I would nap in the middle of the day and then teach afternoon classes. And I would drink caffeine when I got up from my nap. And it just kind of escalated to your tolerance goes up for caffeine and you need more and more. Now I don't run the gym anymore, but my caffeine usage stayed high. With my new job, I was still doing coffee, energy drinks, caffeine pills. It got to the point where I was right around like 700 milligrams of caffeine a day. And just for reference, there's about 100 milligrams in a cup of coffee, give or take. So yeah, anywhere from like 600 to 800 milligrams of caffeine in a day just to feel normal. And kind of the tipping point for me was I had caffeine pills at work to give me a bump once in a while when I needed it. And it was in the afternoon after lunch, and I was just kind of sluggish and I needed a little boost. So I took a caffeine pill, which was 150 milligrams, and felt zero. I felt absolutely nothing from basically a cup and a half of coffee. And I just realized that I needed to make a change. I was so kind of sick of feeling sluggish and lethargic and tired all of the time, other than when I was caffeinated. So my day basically revolved around when I had my caffeine, because I would be productive for 20 minutes to an hour afterwards, and then I would crash again. So I just realized I wanted to get off of it, and I figured that getting completely off of it and kind of resetting my whole system was the move. So that's what I decided to do. But what caffeine is, to start, is basically you have receptors in your brain that receive adenosine, which is a chemical that tells you that you're tired. So when you wake up in the morning, you have very little amounts, and throughout the day, adenosine builds up, and it's supposed to attach to these receptors in your brain to say, hey, you're getting tired, you're getting more tired. And by the end of the day, you should have lots of adenosine on your receptors in your brain saying, hey, we're exhausted, let's go to sleep, and then it resets. What caffeine does is it hijacks those receptors, so it blocks adenosine from telling you that you're tired. So it's basically a cheat code. The adenosine doesn't go away, it's just blocked. So you're kind of building up this debt of fatigue that you're blocking out with the caffeine. And it works really well. The problem is once that wears off, there's this overload of adenosine that wants to get to your brain where it's supposed to go, and then you crash and you're exhausted, which is what a lot of people who deal with caffeine crashes, you're probably familiar with this feeling. So the way to kind of reset that is to reduce your caffeine so that adenosine goes back to normal. Also, caffeine is basically stress. So it bumps up your adrenaline and your cortisol, your fight or flight. So if you're like being chased by a bear and you're like, I need to survive, drinking caffeine induces that in the brain. So if you're caffeinated all day, you're constantly stressed. And it feels like wakefulness, like, oh, I'm alert and I'm ready. And it does help with productiveness and things like that, usually, at least to start. But you're just chronically stressing yourself is really what it comes down to, which isn't healthy for anybody. It's not good for your heart. It's not good for your anxiety. A lot of people who struggle with anxiety are over caffeinated, and reducing that would help. It helped me a lot with my anxiety. I was going to wait till later to cover anxiety, but just because I'm on the topic, I didn't realize that I had anxiety until I got off of caffeine, and I was like, oh, I'm not like constantly like worried about everything all the time. I really was. I was like, well, I need to be like doing this, and I really should be doing that. And what if this happens? Oh no, like what if that would happen? That would be awful. And that was pretty much every single day, not realizing that was what was happening. And now that's pretty much gone. It's significantly reduced. So my anxiety is like way lower. And caffeine was pretty much the only thing I switched. So, all right, back to caffeine. So the half-life of caffeine, people argue, is anywhere from like 6 to 10 hours, but basically 8 hours. Half-life is after the 8 hours, half of that amount of caffeine is still in your system. So if you drink a cup of coffee that has 100 milligrams at noon, at 8 p.m., 50 milligrams is still in your system getting taken care of. So a lot of times caffeine negatively affects how we sleep, especially if it's taken in the afternoon. Scientifically, the best time to drink caffeine is wake up, wait 90 minutes because your body is programmed to wake itself up and to have some stress levels upon waking. And that kind of wears off after about 90 minutes. So if you're taking caffeine, you're just interrupting that cycle and they're fighting each other when it's not really necessary. So if you can make it 90 minutes, then have your caffeine so that it's still early enough that the caffeine wears off for the most part by the end of the day. That's kind of the gold standard. But if you have a severe caffeine issue, I would do what I did and completely cut it out. I weaned off of it, but I would cut it out completely so that you can understand your relationship with caffeine and how it affects you. And then if you want to, after like a month, slowly add it back in. Excuse me. So what helped me getting through was actually watching a bunch of like YouTube videos of other people who gave up caffeine and how it affected them. And almost every single one, I can't think of one that didn't. They all said, way better. I'm never going back to caffeine. This is amazing. My energy's back. I'm sleeping better. All these positive things, which is true for me too. I agree with all of those things. And so when I was struggling and watched those videos on YouTube, that helped me give me like an extra boost of, okay, I can keep going. Because it is difficult. I'll just cover like what I did. So I weaned off. In the past, I had done cold turkey and it didn't work. Just completely going to zero because you can't do anything. Like it's debilitating. Is that the word? Like you can't move. You have to lay down because your body goes through withdrawals. It's pretty significant depending on how much caffeine you're used to. So I decided to wean off this time and I took roughly 10 days to do it. I went to like 2 cups of coffee for a couple of days, which was a lot less than I was doing. And then I did a cup and a decaf for a few days. And then I did half decaf, half regular, just 1 cup for a few days. And then I did decaf and green tea, which green tea has caffeine in it as well. It's just lower amounts. So it was decaf coffee to give me the coffee flavor and then some green tea for a little caffeine. And then eventually I got rid of the decaf and it was just a green tea. And then I switched to herbal tea after about 10 days, maybe about 12 days. I didn't keep a record of it, but 10 to 12 days, I was completely off of caffeine and on the herbal tea only, which is caffeine free. And it's a struggle, but I think that way was much more realistic because I have a job and I have a wife and kids and I can't just give up like a week of my life to sleep by going cold turkey. I just don't have that time or convenience. Some people like doing that better because it's a little bit faster, but I think weaning off makes a lot more sense if you have responsibilities and things to do, which most of us do. So a slow wean off till you're eventually at nothing. And I think the herbal tea really helped me a lot with sticking with it because I still had that warm drink in the morning to kind of get me going. And there was still some routine to it. A big thing with caffeine and getting off of caffeine for people is the routine. And if your routine is completely different, it's too big of a change and a lot of people fall off and go back to the caffeine. Not to mention it's addictive. So your brain really wants it and you want that cheap energy, which again is just, it's a credit card of energy. Like you have to pay it back at some point. And most of us are exhausted all day apart from when we have our coffee or our caffeine. And that's because you have this huge debt of adenosine that's like, hey, we need to go to where we're supposed to go. We've been waiting here for a while with interest. So that's why you get exhausted when you get off of it. But weaning does help for sure. Let me see. Better sleep helped my sleep a lot. Obviously, it was a big change. And by the end of the day, like just dead, ready to sleep. Like no issue. I usually sleep pretty good anyways. But I had no issues falling asleep. Big, crazy dreams coming back, like huge, ridiculous dreams almost every night, especially at the beginning. But a lot more vivid dreaming, which is kind of cool. One of my favorite benefits was the freedom. Like the need went away. The need of, I have to have my caffeine. When do I get my next caffeine fix? After lunch, I feel a little sluggish from eating. Oh, I can't wait to have my energy drink to get me through the rest of the day. Like my day revolved around when I was caffeinated. So I was a slave to caffeine. And it took, a while. Again, I've done this for a month now, to where like I don't even think about it really anymore, which is amazing. Like a month ago, I wouldn't have even thought I could do that. But there is such freedom in like, you know what, I don't need it. Like our bodies are meant to be energetic and to get through the day and just feel good and not sluggish and lethargic all day apart from when we're caffeinated. That's not how our bodies are meant to be. Saved money because I'm not buying coffees. I never felt the need to go out and buy coffee. I would buy energy drinks at like Quick Trip or the gas station, which is like $3 to $4 for one. And then you're also not getting all of that junk. A lot of times with coffee, we have coffee creamer and there's all this junk that's in coffee creamers. And in energy drinks, there's like 1,000 ingredients, which you have no idea what's all in there, but there's clearly a lot of like toxic things that are bad for our gut and all of those things, like artificial ingredients. It's just not good for our stomach or good for our body. So cutting out those is good for sure. Energy is steady throughout the day now, which is fantastic. I can kind of work longer. One of my big reasons for wanting to get off caffeine was coming home from work, just being exhausted. And now I have to I want to play with my kids and hang out with my wife and have energy and be positive, but I couldn't because I was so tired that Henry would be like, Daddy, come play. Can you come play? And I'd be like, I physically can't, which is awful. Like, what kind of dad is that can't play with his kids when he gets home from work because he's just addicted to caffeine? That's unacceptable. So that was a big reason for me, and that's proven to, I feel better. We go for walks now after dinner, like every day, which is fantastic. It's one of my favorite parts of the day. I wouldn't have had energy to do that before. So incredible benefits for that. I wake up ready to go. I used to wake up zombie mode, dead, exhausted, and it would take me until I had my coffee in the morning to feel like a human being or to feel even normal. Real quick, other thing was caffeine should be a bump. Again, I had my first cup of coffee in a month today, and it was amazing. Felt great for about like 20 to 30 minutes, and I kind of came back down, and now I feel normal again, which is good. But when you're addicted to caffeine and drinking it all the time, you don't even have that bump. There is no excitement. There's just, you go from feeling terrible to like okay, like normal. And you want to be able to feel good, and that caffeine should be a bump, like excitement, like it's a treat, like, oh, I have this big project due, let me have a little bit of caffeine to kind of excite me so that I can have more energy to do this. And that's kind of what I'm going to try and get my relationship with caffeine to be now, is I really think I'm going to do like one coffee a month. Today is my wife's birthday, so I was excited. It's like a special day. I'll have one cup of coffee, plus it's already been my month. So it worked out well, and I don't regret having my cup of coffee. It was fine, and I had it in that window where it should be worn off by going to bed tonight. Anyways, okay, another big thing. I used to enjoy doing challenging, difficult things. I started my own business that I don't own anymore. I started 4 years ago. It was really challenging, but it was fun. I before I got off caffeine, I was working out all the time. I love doing challenging things like cold showers or like all sorts of things that are like, it's tough, but you feel better and it makes you better. And I stopped wanting to do hard things, which wasn't really my personality, to just, skate by and just exist and just survive, which is what I started doing. And I realized it's because I had no energy to put towards anything extra. And I had no energy because I was addicted to caffeine and abusing it, and I was exhausted all the time. I was in a big slump, and it helped me a lot. Like now, another thing I think caffeine does is, since it's fake energy, it masks the other things that we do in our life that ruin our energy that we don't realize. Like junk food for sure. When you're eating junk, you feel sluggish and lethargic and no energy and things hurt and whatever. But you can mask that with caffeine because it gives you a boost and you feel okay and you have energy again. And same thing with alcohol. Like if you have caffeine, it almost doesn't matter if you want to be hungover or go out and have a couple too many drinks, because you can just over caffeinate the next day and hide it. One thing I learned, which was huge, was I didn't have that mask anymore. So now I don't want to drink anymore because I'm exhausted the day after having a drink, and I'm like, oh man, it ruins your sleep. Alcohol ruins your sleep. You're not recovered if you drink. The next day is rough if you're not caffeinated, which I realized. So now I don't want to drink anymore, and I really don't want to eat unhealthy food anymore because I know that that's going to slow me down, and I want to be productive and energetic and have good days. And I was masking those issues with caffeine. And I think that's the same for a lot of us. Okay, got that. One kind of more final thing was, for being a role model for my kids. I got 2 boys, so they're going to be men someday. And kind of like along the doing challenging things is to just try. Like I want to be the example of just try. Maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe things go wrong. But nothing changes or gets better if you don't try. So even making this video, like I was hesitant about making it and putting it out because what if people don't care? Whatever. Just try. So that's my message to you, the listener, the viewer, to my kids, is just try it. Just give it a shot, okay? Whatever it may be. Maybe it's not giving up caffeine, but something else that you're like, you got this itch. Try it. Please try it, because we're only here for so long. We only got this one shot. We got this one chance. So just try it, okay? Last 2 things I have on my list here. I'm back, and I'm not constantly needing a stimulant, which feels amazing. Again, the freedom of not needing it. Like, I just feel like myself again. And if you're addicted to caffeine, you might not know yourself very well. You know your caffeinated self. It's a stimulant. It is a drug. And just to be a little aggressive with my language is like, you're a druggie. You're a junkie that needs your fix. Like, it's very similar to other types of drugs and stimulants. And you're not the same person off of it as you are on it, because you need it. You're addicted to it. You can only get things done with it. So wouldn't it be kind of fun and exciting to figure out who you are as a person without that stuff? And kind of, that's what I wanted to say. Okay. All right. Become more human. That's kind of my message I'm starting to lean towards and get back to, is like, do human things. Like, humans are meant to be outside. We're meant to exercise. We're meant to eat real foods. We're not meant to be addicted to stuff, to just exist. We should have energy throughout the day. We should get good night's sleep. So become more human and life will be better. Do human things. And you're worth taking care of. If you're in a rough spot and you feel bad about yourself and you don't think that you're worth it, you're worth taking care of. And things will get better on the other side of doing challenging things. I think I covered everything that I wanted to say. Oh, wait, last thing. Final thing about getting through the tough parts was, one of the videos I watched was from Wheezy Waiter. He's a YouTube guy. And he said, because he did this challenge too, he said, feeling not bad is good. And I loved that because most of when I was over caffeinated all the time, I was feeling bad most of the time, apart from when I was caffeinated, which again was just cheating energy, stealing energy. So feeling not bad is good. So when I was having a rough, like lethargic day and I was really struggling with, and I wanted caffeine really bad, I just remembered that I'm working towards feeling not bad anymore. And I wouldn't feel terrible in those times. I just didn't feel good because I didn't have my caffeine fix. But that's a good thing. It's good to not feel that bad, crummy way. So that kind of just helped my mindset of, I'm not feeling great right now because I don't have caffeine, but I actually, when I think about it, was feeling bad most of the time when I was using caffeine. So feeling not bad is good. So keep going, keep pushing through, give it at least a month. My full intention is to have one coffee a month. I think it's kind of fun. It's something to look forward to. It'll keep me from like falling back into my old habits. And then I can kind of pick a day and be like, oh, we're doing this fun little thing that day. That'll be my coffee for the month. And then it makes that experience better. It's a fun treat again. It's a boost again. It's not a dependency, and I need this to exist. So hopefully that was helpful, maybe inspirational a little bit. If you want to leave a comment about your caffeine journey, or hey, Pete, you're crazy, why would you ever do this to yourself? Comment it below. And I hope you have a wonderful day. God loves you. And that's it.